They said the roses at Hawthorne Estate bloomed more beautifully than anywhere else. Velvety reds, ghostly whites, petals that shimmered under moonlight. But beauty this wild demands a price. And when Ava Morgan came to restore the forgotten garden, she never expected to fall in love, or to unearth a century-old secret buried in blood and silence. Because beneath the soil where love blossoms, something else is waiting to be found. The old Hawthorne Estate was the kind of place that held secrets between its stones. Wrapped in ivy and shadow, it stood quiet at the edge of town, its rose garden a burst of color amid the gloom. People said it was cursed, that the flowers bloomed so fiercely only because they fed on something darker than rain. But Ava Morgan didn't believe in ghost stories. She came to the estate in early spring, fresh from the city with paint-stained fingers and a heart that still ached from the weight of a recent betrayal. She was hired to restore the neglected gardens, their once famous beauty buried beneath years of weeds and whispers. The caretaker, a quiet man named Elias Gray, met her at the gates. He had a gentle voice and eyes like stormy skies, and something about the way he looked at the roses made Ava feel as though he heard things others couldn't. "They're stubborn," Elias said, nodding toward the thorny maze. "But they'll bloom for you if you treat them gently." As the days passed, Ava found peace among the petals. Her hands bled from thorns, her shoulders ached from digging. But in the quiet rhythm of tending the earth, she began to heal. And Elias was always there, silent in the mornings with coffee, humming old songs in the dusk. Love, slow and surprising, began to bloom. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills and bathed the garden in gold, Elias reached out and tucked a rose behind Ava's ear. "You've brought them back to life," he murmured. Ava smiled. Maybe they just needed someone to believe in them. But something shifted that night. The wind whispered to the hedges in a way it never had before, carried with it a voice, a woman's voice, soft and broken. "Why did you leave me here?" Ava froze. She glanced at Elias, who stood pale, lips pressed tight, his eyes refusing to meet hers. "Did you hear that?" she asked. "No," he said too quickly. "It's just the wind. The garden plays tricks at night." But the whispers continued. Every evening, just as twilight brushed the roses, the voice returned, sometimes crying, sometimes singing. And Ava began to dig, not just in the soil, but into the estate's past. What she found chilled her. Decades ago, the estate belonged to a young couple, Lucille and Henry Hawthorne. Lucille was beautiful and wild, the talk of the town, but after a bitter winter, she vanished. Henry claimed she had run off, but the villagers said she never would have left her roses. The story had faded over time. No one asked questions anymore. No one except Ava. One sleepless night, the whispers became unbearable, drawing Ava to the heart of the garden. She followed the voice to the old stone fountain, choked with vines. Beneath it, she unearthed a lockbox, rusted shut. Inside, a yellowed love letter, a locket with Lucille's portrait, and a bone, small, delicate, and a single line scratched into the metal. "He said the roses would keep my secret." Ava turned to find Elias standing behind her, shadows slicing across his face. "It was Henry," he said quietly. "My great-grandfather. He buried her here." "Why didn't you tell me?" Ava whispered. "Because I hoped, if the garden bloomed again, if someone kind loved it, it might silence her." His voice cracked. "But she doesn't want peace. She wants to be found." Ava touched the locket, heart pounding. "Then we'll give her that." The next morning, the police came. The bones were exhumed, the garden cordoned off. Lucille's name was spoken aloud for the first time in nearly a century. And the roses? They still bloom, wilder, brighter, but they no longer whisper. Instead, Ava hears something else when she walks through the rows, a soft, grateful sigh carried on the wind. And beside her, Elias walks quietly, their hands intertwined. Two souls who learn that love cannot grow where secrets rot beneath the soil, but that truth, like roses, can bloom even from the darkest ground. A month passed since Lucille's remains were laid to rest. The town buzzed with the story, the mystery of the Hawthorne estate, the tragedy buried under decades of silence. Reporters came and went, drawn to the haunting beauty of the garden and the truth that had risen from its roots. But the house, the garden, and its keepers, Ava and Elias, remained quiet. They didn't seek attention. They had already been changed. Ava stayed on after the investigation ended. What began as a temporary job became something deeper, a calling, a belonging. The land needed care, yes, but so did Elias. And though he had not been guilty of the sin his bloodline carried, he bore its weight. At night, Elias would sometimes wake from dreams with Lucille's name on his lips, his hands clenched around invisible regrets. "She wasn't angry at you," Ava whispered once, wrapping her arms around him. "She just wanted to be heard." Elias stared at the ceiling, tears slipping silently. "She sounded like my mother when she cried. Soft, hollow, like something cracked inside her." The garden grew more beautiful with each passing week. as though grateful. Roses spilled like rivers over stone walls, new colors blooming Ava had never planted. Deep violets, pale silvers, a haunting shade of blood red that only opened beneath the moonlight. But it wasn't over. Not completely. One afternoon, Ava discovered something strange. A patch of soil near the western edge of the garden where the roses refused to grow. Not even weeds dared push through. It was like the earth itself held its breath. When she asked Elias about it, he hesitated. "I've never planted there," he said finally. "My grandmother warned me, said it was a bad place, that even the worms died in that soil." Curious, Ava returned after dusk with a lantern and spade. As she dug, the air thickened. The scent of roses turned sour, like wine turned to vinegar. Her spade struck something hard. Wood. Another box. This one was smaller, ornately carved but rotted with time. Inside, wrapped in silk, was a second locket and a diary, barely intact. The handwriting was delicate, frantic. A girl's voice crying from the past. "He loved me once, before Lucille, but I wasn't the one he chose. I knew too much. He told me the garden needed silence, so he gave it mine." The signature at the end, Margaret Gray, Elias's great-grandmother. Ava's hands trembled. She turned to see Elias standing behind her, pale as the moonlight. "I didn't know," he whispered, falling to his knees. "God, I didn't know." 2 women buried, one in sorrow, one in silence. The truth wasn't just one story. It was a history of buried women, their names written in petals and forgotten in the soil. This time, Ava didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, she and Elias held a small ceremony at dawn. They read Margaret's words aloud, placed a locket beside a fresh white rose, and planted a sapling where the ground had once resisted life. "We'll remember them," Ava promised, as the first rays of sun touched the leaves. "We'll make sure no one else gets buried in the name of love." And so the garden lived, not as a place of secrets anymore, but as a sanctuary for truth, and the people brave enough to uncover it. Ava and Elias married the following spring. The estate, once known for its ghosts, became famous for its healing. Visitors came to see the blooms, to walk through rows of whispering roses, and feel something unspoken in the wind. Not grief, but remembrance. And in the quietest corner of the garden, beneath the white rose tree, 2 names were etched in stone. Lucille Hawthorne. I bloomed too brightly to be hidden. Margaret Gray. My voice returns with every petal.